up, sports fans? Your favorite sportsbook, BetUS.com, is back for our 28th year of NFL action. With the industry's biggest sign-up bonus of up to 200%, BetUS offers our members the opportunity to cash in on all your favorite sports, including NFL, NBA, MLB, and more. We've also got hundreds of new casino games, including the coolest new European slots, and our live dealers are waiting for you at the table. Sign up at BetUS.com today to get into the action. BetUS, where the game begins.
And now, broadcasting live from Las Vegas, the Snake Sports Talk Show with Jake Silva starts now.
All right, here we go, ladies and gentlemen. It is finally a fantastic Friday, and we made it through the week here on the Snake Sports Talk Show, wherever and however you may be watching and listening. Thanks for being a part of your day. Jace, we got a good one today because, man, Game 7. I'm really excited up from here, but plus also Brett Chansey of Locked On Astros. We're going to be talking some Astros baseball, and then, of course, all the way up to the All-Star game and the trade deadline. Lots and lots of moves to be happening and made. I'm really excited about this one, but I do want to start off with this one real quickly before we get into the heart of it all here on a Friday. But this was exactly what I was thinking last night because I had a very good feeling that Indiana was going to come out of this game, having their star player in Tyrese Halliburton. He came in. What did it look like he had the injury at all? It looked like he was just fine. Everybody else, Pascal Siakam, and multiple others, they all stepped up, and that's where they rooted the OKC Thunder. And now they're having to force a Game 7, go to Oklahoma City. It's going to be a really interesting crowd from there, but it's all or nothing. Now, people have been asking, did this kind of take the fire away from the Thunder? Maybe a little bit up and into some spurts, but I guarantee you a Game 7 like this is going to be electrifying. No pun intended. But here's the thing about this. The Indiana Pacers showed you exactly what they're capable of. They've been showing it all season long and all the way up and into the postseason. Just because you have a 10 or 15-point lead does not mean that it is always guaranteed to be safe. That's what OKC had to understand and had to basically, really control on the floor. And unfortunately, for guys like Chet Holmgren, I've been talking about all postseason long, the struggles continue. But yet, Tyrese Halliburton, it was more about electric, more motivation for the Pacers to come out and win that game and force a Game 7. So this is going to be interesting, but I expected the Indiana Pacers to fight back, rebound back, and they ended up doing it in a big fashion. And so for Tyrese Halliburton, they get their star player back. This was important for them. So good for the Pacers last night. They get it done. They force a Game 7. So this weekend, you bet that I'm going to be sitting down there, probably going to get some popcorn, and really enjoy watching this Game 7 because don't we all just love Game 7s? If you're a betting man like myself, born and raised in Vegas, living in the mountains of Colorado, we just love that stuff. So, it's going to be interesting. I'm sure the money pot is going to be piling up. But you know what? It's always good for sports whenever we get a Game 7 because we don't like the stuff where it's like an easy sweep and such like that because there's no money to be made. So, should be interesting, though, for Game 7. All right, so Major League Baseball still continuing on. It's been a really, really good season up this far, and we've known about rivalries between, the Red Sox, Yankees, and then not to mention just what happened with the Dodgers and Padres. But we're shifting our focus up and into the Houston Astros because this has been an interesting season for them. And in the last few years since winning World Series titles and then getting into the postseason almost every single year, been an interesting season. But to join us to talk about the Astros here, Brett Chansey joins us. All right, so we know last year, getting into it, what a surprise that it was that the Detroit Tigers ended up doing the business against the Astros. This year, though, we know that, some pieces like Alex Bregman and such, they move on. And, this is now a young Astros team where you're powered up by Yordan Alvarez. I really love the kid, Cam Smith. I think the kid is fantastic. I think he's got a bright future ahead of them for Houston. What has been kind of the headliner for the Astros to start this season and where they are? Because I would imagine there's still some juice in the tank for this organization before they really got to think about, we got to really start calling up our youngsters, really build this lineup up, and really start thinking about the future for the next few years.
Yeah, definitely. Once you have created a foundation and a clubhouse culture and you stick true to who you are, no matter what happens in that clubhouse, it's not necessarily about the personnel that have left, but it's about the culture that you've created. And that's why Jose Altuve, Jeremy Pena now has become the leader. Hunter Brown has been called the ace of the staff. I mean, we know how great Fromber is, but right now you've got a 1-2 punch. And then after that, you've got rookies and fill-ins because Eric Getty, who is supposed to be your solid number 3, had a freak accident with the broken thumb. And then Lance McCullers Jr. has been a bright spot coming back from a 2-year absence and hiatus, bit by the injury bug. Now he is on the 15-day IL, but it is completely unrelated to his arm or his elbow. So the good thing was it was a twisted ankle. I think something happened in a workout or something. So he should be back, may miss a couple starts. But to look at this year compared to last year is they're winning a lot of close games. Now, last night they did lose their first extra inning game. They're 4-1 now on the season, so they've done better there. It really has been the pitching. If they didn't have the pitching come out the way it has come out, not only the front end but the back end. We got Josh Hader in here, and last year just had a lot of mistakes, was leaving a lot of stuff over the plate. Didn't have the swing and miss stuff, and he figured something out, changed the way he kind of adjusted his arm slot, and now he's basically been perfect up until last night in Sacramento. He had converted all of his save opportunities, and so really the pitching has sustained this team because in their games this year, they have scored 3 runs or less in over half their games. And when they do that, they lose a lot. Now, when they win, they score 4 runs or more, and they win at an 81% clip. That's the difference this year. The pitching and the hitting, although it hasn't been consistent, has done enough. Yordan is out. They've had multiple injuries. I mean, Christian Walker hasn't been himself. But we'll get into the hitting here in a second because there are some guys that are having career years that have really helped boost this team. But really, pitching is the marquee word in 2025.
Yeah, it's interesting because, following the Houston Astros, and even for as long as I can remember, I'm a baseball guy at heart. And so, watching this team to where it is now, moving from, they were American League before, going to the National League and back to the American League. The history, writes itself. Right. But I just look at, because right now they're 4.5 games up in the West. And we know that Seattle, to me, I don't trust the Angels so much. It's always a new year and it's the same stuff. And until they actually figure it out, you can try to ride this whole thing out with your youngsters, but it's still going to be the same stuff. But the Astros, they're just, even with the mistakes, they seem calm. They seem like they've got things under control for the most part. But even with Joe Espada, to me, when he came in after Dusty Baker winning a World Series title and really lifting this team up, trying to get through all of that, allegation stuff and the asterisk, right. After that, now you've turned the page and you got Joe Espada. Is this just kind of more of we know the pitching's really been the Achilles heel for this team, but has it mostly been more of just the leadership from just the managerial and the stuff upstairs? Because it seems like they just do this almost every single year. They'll go out, get some needed players, and then they're just fine in the AL West.
It's funny. At the beginning of the season, the You got to love the Rangers. Yes, they have won on us. They did beat us to go to the World Series and win.
Yeah.
But their commentators, oh my gosh, they love clickbaiting themselves. In the beginning of the season, they said this is the year that the Astros' reign in the West it ends. It's over. And there have been so many retweets and so many receipts kept from that game. But what you have here is Joe Espada last year was highly criticized. And at times I am critical of managerial moves. I'll question lineups and things like that. But I try not to get bogged down in that because it's a 162 game season. And it's so easy for us as fans to nitpick from a 10,000 point viewpoint, right? Like it's easy for you and I to watch a game of our favorite team and tell the coach everything that he should have done differently because it didn't go the way that we thought it should go. At the end of the day, they've got hundreds of guys in the analytics department. They've got the presence, like you mentioned, the veteran presence, and they focus on themselves. They celebrate each other. Joe Espada, look, Jose Altuve came to Joe Espada this year and said, take me out of the leadoff spot, put me in the 3-hole, put Jeremy Pena in the 1-hole. He's having a career year. Who does that? What other team do you hear? And I'm not saying there aren't great stars in Major League Baseball that have humility, but Jose Altuve went to the coach, and Joe Espada could have said, you know what, Jose, that's your spot. I'm not moving you. But he said, okay, he trusted his guys. He goes around. He talks to the clubhouse. He talks to the guys. He has taken this team from last year. At this point, we were 7 or 8 games in the hole, out of first place, and did what only one other team did, come back from a 10 or 11 game deficit to come back and make it to the playoffs. And this year, now we are in command of the West with a wildly inconsistent offense. I mean, we just split 4 games with the Athletics, and Nick Kurtz walked us off in 2 of those games.
Yeah.
The other 2 games, this team absolutely crushed the Athletics. So the potential for power is there, but it is that veteran leadership. And Joe Espada, I think right now, between Joe Espada and our old manager, AJ Hinch, those 2 guys should be the leading candidates for American League Manager of the Year. If both the Tigers and the Astros continue what they're doing, those guys are going to be neck and neck in the voting, and he definitely deserves a nod because – man, he's done a phenomenal job. You got the greatest left-handed hitter on the planet that can't even pick up a bat right now, and they're still doing this. On top of that, career years by Jake Myers, career years by Jeremy Pena. Isaac Paredes has come in and just absolutely owned. And despite Christian Walker not being who he has been, he's been getting better. Yeah. And so that's what it's about. It's not a sprint. It's a marathon, and it's about today is the battle. Today is what we fight. We don't worry about the division. We worry about who's in front of us. The Angels, you know what? They played really good baseball for the most part as of late. You don't sleep on anybody. Everybody is a great opponent.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I did get the news about the Angels where Ron Washington, he's stepping away for the time being to take care of his health, and as he should. But I'm not sure how that, because it could affect a team in some ways. But if they're playing hard and they just continue to go, to get the job done, then they'll be okay. But I think this is interesting too, Brett, is to me the last few years, I don't know if you noticed it, but it seemed like there's been an issue with first base as of lately. Because I know we talked about, the time when they got Jose Abreu, and this is after Yuli Gurriel. Jose Abreu didn't turn out to be the player that, the Astros were hoping that he would be. Here we are with Christian Walker, hoping that he would be the guy that the Diamondbacks, they've leaned towards as being that pivotal piece in the lineup to just making that run like they did in the World Series. And now here we are up in Houston, and there's been some struggles. Has that been something that's been a key area that the Astros have been trying to figure out now in the last few seasons?
Yeah, and when they initially signed him, everybody's like, "Oh, here's another aging first baseman," and that's why when we when the fan base had heard rumors about them going after someone like a Paul Goldschmidt, right? They're like, oh, but he's aging. What is Goldie doing right now? He's playing phenomenal. I mean, he's in New York. He's thriving. I mean, the Yankees had the highest OPS in the league for a reason. He's part of that. So when Christian Walker comes in, naturally, you're going to have some time of just adjusting. Clubhouse, culture, feel, comfortability, facing new pitchers. Now, that's not as much of an issue now because of the interleague play. But I also do a podcast called Back to the Bullpen with Mike Stanton, 19-year major league veteran. And, Mike says, hey, look, it's between the ears. And he's going to have to hit his way out of it because you know what? He's getting paid $60 million for the next 3 years total. And there's nobody that can do anything other than Christian Walker, and he's just going to have to figure it out. And so it may be a rough first half. And I really think that we're seeing a trend in the right direction with him. And I don't care if he tees off on the most rookie pitcher that they throw at him. He just needs success. But I will say this, he hits a lot better at home at Dyken Park than he does on the road. So if we can get the road split to come up a little bit for him and we can get him, I don't even need him to hit home runs. If he can just hit opposite field doubles in the right center field gap, that will be enough. But that's been the problem. And that's been when they haven't scored a lot of runs. Last night, I believe they stranded 13 runners. They were like 2 for 13 with runners in scoring position. So you're not going to beat anybody having those kind of numbers because you ruined a Victor Caratini, and an extra dirty Victor Caratini last night, hitting that bomb and tying the game up. Yep. But yeah, Christian Walker for the fan base, man, it's been brutal. Some people have labeled it the curse of Yuli, but I don't know if it's so much that. It's just, I mean, the Jose Abreu thing should have never happened. Jeff Bagwell should have never been in charge of that decision, and a lot of people blame him for that.
Oh man, think about that. A former first baseman, and then he makes a move like that, and turns out the ball was not in his court up until that point. No. So, reverting back to, the pitching, because I mean, I've watched this team, to where they've had, Garrett Cole, Justin Verlander, and even Zach Greinke, and, a very stacked rotation. Now here we are where there's a bunch of youngsters, but I got to say, Hunter Brown is having a hell of a career year, being the starter and having the low ERA, second lowest to Paul Skeens. The kid seems like he's finding his control. He's exactly delivering a lot of the pitches, and especially when he's facing against some of these tough hitters. Breaking down, Hunter Brown, because I watched the kid and I'm surprised yet not surprised in a way, because, the Astros, they just found a way to kind of, really turn up pitching the way that they have. And you get all these young guys like Framber Valdez, even Jose Urquidy, and a lot of these other guys, they were looking really good. But with Hunter Brown, I feel like he is definitely stepping up as a guy that you can lean on as that ace starter up and into that rotation. The year that he's having is just remarkable for a lot of Houston fans, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Since last May when he added a pitch to his arsenal, and now he has just gone on this tear, like you said, second to only someone like the likes of Paul Skeens, who looks to be every bit a generational pitcher. And sorry, Pittsburgh, don't think he'll be there long. But Hunter Brown, this guy, from the day that I saw him step on the field at Consolation Field, AAA Sugarland, 20 minutes from our home big league ballpark, I just knew there was something different. My friend Mark White and I were at a game watching him pitch. And before the game, actually, it was the day before he had a start, and they had just announced that he got elected to the Futures game. And it was actually, ironically, him and Yanyer Diaz went to the Futures game, is when the All-Star game was in San Diego, I believe. And we asked him, we said, hey, Hunter, how do you feel about being nominated to the Futures games? That's a big nod from like your peers and coaches and stuff. And that was 2022. And that's when he got called up late that season when the Astros won the World Series. And this is what he said to me, and I quote, he said, "It's great to have the accolades, But what I want to be doing is I want to be at Minute Maid Park on that mound, helping the Astros win a World Series. Yeah. I will never forget that moment. And from that moment on, I knew something was going to be different. And as much as he struggled with his command, I said, this kid's going to come up and he's going to pay dividends for this team. A key bullpen role. And look at this, a 5.09 ERA, 11-13 and 23. Last year, lower, 3.49 ERA, 11-9. This year, 8-3, a 1.88 ERA. He has already amassed, just a crazy amount of strikeouts. He's right at 105. His highest total is 179. He's on track to get over 200 strikeouts. And him and Tyreek Skubal, I think, are 1 and 1A. You catch those guys on a good 5-game stretch, you could take them head to head. It doesn't take anything away from Crochet and the other guys that are doing well in the AL. But Hunter Brown has the moxie. He has the bravado. And you know what he also has? He now has Boris as his agent. Oh. So that right there tells me all I need to know about Hunter Brown. But there's got to be a way to keep this kid in Houston.
Oh, 100%. Especially when you're trying to bolster a rotation that you know that you got two guys you can lean on, and then give yourself the stabilizer that can help whenever that rotation comes around, right? So I do want to revert to this, but we've seen the class for the MLB Hall of Fame. And listen, as long as I have been a baseball fan since I've been in diapers, okay, I've been to the Hall of Fame once. I've been to New York 6 times I've been in my life, but being in there is it's just a grand walkway. You watched a lot of these heroes and a lot of these big time baseball icons, and to be able to be etched into baseball immortality. I got to say, Brett, fina freaking Lee, that Billy Wagner is now a Hall of Famer, because here's my thing. The last few years, I have literally been giving a snide look to MLB writers, because right now it's like, what are we doing? Like the one year when we had Scott Rowland go to the Hall of Fame, I'm not saying that, I don't wish any ill will on Scott Rowland. He's a very good player, watched him play. But man, really? We could have had Andrew Jones. We could have had a lot of these big time players as you and I being baseball guys. We watched the stats. We watched how great these players have been. And look, the concept is we're kind of at this butting heads moment right now, because you got the PED thing. And listen, my thoughts on this, I won't get too deep on this, but the whole Pete Rose thing, I didn't like it. Because first of all, it's like, you're lifting this whole thing for what? And it's like, I don't understand it. But with Billy Wagner, finally he gets into the Hall of Fame, because I watched this guy. He was such a great player. And I thought him going up into these moments and shutting him down like he has deserves well enough for the Hall of Fame. And so when he got the call, I mean, you guys as Astro fans, man, and covering the Astros, felt that sigh of relief. Like, finally, we saw Biggio, we saw Bagwell, and now Billy Wagner is etched into immortality.
Yeah, definitely. And I haven't had the pleasure of, I've talked with Billy Wagner for a short time. I haven't gotten to have the full length interview. I got to talk to him, Bagwell, and Biggio when they all signed at the TriStar show here in Houston. TriStar actually started here in the Houston area. I think we're coming up on the big national convention. It's in Chicago this year. Some great stars. But Billy Wagner, when I talked to Roy Oswald, because I've interviewed him a few times. Yep. Roy talks about in his Mississippi tone, he's like, Billy was a baller. Like, he loves Billy Wagner. And when you talk to Craig Biggio, when you talk to Bagwell, they can't speak enough about him. Lance Berkman, just high praises, not only in the clubhouse, but on the field. And I remember watching him just hurl that fastball and hurl that pitch over that plate and just going, I can't believe someone can throw this hard, because really Billy Wagner was doing that. We weren't in this dawn of the hard throwing guys throwing hundos, the Joyces, everybody that throws over 100, Paul Skeens going into 8th inning, throwing 103. Yep. Because he was more of a unicorn. and to be a left-hander and to do it the way he did it and just everything that he was in an Astros uniform, that made it all the more special. Because if the Astros had made in their history the right move and re-signed or kept Nolan Ryan around and let him finish his career instead of letting him go to the Texas Rangers, Billy Wagner would have been our fourth Hall of Famer, would have been our second pitcher. And so we love the fact that we have a pitcher in there now in Billy Wagner. Some people say, well, maybe Lance Berkman could get in. I think there's a case for Lance Berkman, but he didn't make it. But yeah, man, he deserved it. Everybody. And this is what upsets me. And maybe I don't understand the process, and maybe this is me speaking out of ignorance. But when I see people that have Hall of Fame ballot privileges, okay, and they submit one flipping vote. Now, if you have a field where there's one clear-cut guy and all the rest are just, we just got to have names on the ballot because we know that happens. But there are so many guys out there. I'm like, why do you even vote? Or how do you not turn in a card or, whatever? It just doesn't make any sense to me. But Billy Wagner got his due. Billy Wagner, when he cried, when he got that call, that's genuine. And it's great to see. And I wish all the best success to his son, Will. We were really hoping Will would stay in an Astros uniform, but I hope he has a long and successful career in the MLB, because that would be great to have a Hall of Famer watch his son try to achieve the same thing.
Absolutely. And, funny story, just a side note, because speaking of Biggio, I mean, that was my mother's favorite player, Stony Brook kid. And, coming up into Houston, watching him as a catcher and then transition to a shortstop. And then the rest is history up from there. And so it was like, and to me, it was like when they tried to figure this out, you tried to etch him into this PED talk. And I'm like, no, he was not that. Not at all. He was a guy that got on base. He's a guy that ended up giving you extra bases. And he was just that guy that was just a kid having fun, a Stony Brook kid having fun. And I just was like, I was so happy he got in, but I am really happy that Billy Wagner, and to be a part of a class with Ichiro Suzuki and with CC Sabathia is just, it's remarkable. I do want to say though, because we know it took a bit of time, and it was coming the time for Astro fans where you were going to see this roster from top to bottom of its plethora, from the rotation, the lineup, it was eventually going to change. I mean, no Carlos Correa, George Springer, Alex Bregman, but you still have the heart and soul of the club with Jose Altuve.
Right.
Seeing him, I say this, I think he will for sure be etched as a future Hall of Famer and maybe be another one that the Houston Astros will gain. To see just what Jose Altuve has stood for, because watching that kid, I've said this to everybody, like at his size, I've had a few people that were just about his size, maybe a little bit inch taller, but I said they're perfect second basemen because they don't have to do much. They can at least, play very good defense. But if they can hit the ball, or if they can at least, pitch and get the control and the velocity, those kids will be special in the league. So watching Jose Altuve, I think by the time it's all said and done, Houston fans are going to greatly appreciate for everything and leaving his mark in the city of Houston, from championships to winning seasons, and just being that kid from Venezuela who got the chance.
Yeah, he is the ultimate. I mean, he embodies what Houston is. In 2017, when Hurricane Harvey hit, that to me is what is most painful about the whole cheating scandal hanging over the 2017 season, because this team put the city on their back and they're like, we're going to go win it for you. Now, you take Jose Altuve, this guy does more stuff for people in the community, kids in the community. Is one of the nicest human beings, is actually one of the guys that is the least guilty and didn't even benefit from the scandal in 2017. And yet it doesn't bother him. They were booing the hell out of him in Sacramento, and he hits a 3-run bomb. I mean, but every Yankees fan I talked to, I said, if you could take one Houston Astro off your team and make him a Yankee, they always go to Jose Altuve because they know he's clutch. And even, look, the guy was like, I'll play the outfield. And then he was out there in left field like he was a 10-year-old who got to play sports for the first time. And I mean, he will do it all. I promise you that if Joe Espada said, Jose Altuve, I need you to catch for me in the 7th inning, that guy would be in the catcher's gear, like, I mean, in negative time. The dude would be, boom, he'd be like, put me in, coach. He is just that guy. He is the king of H-Town. I think he has cemented himself as one of the top 3 or top 4 best athletes to ever put on a uniform in a professional sport in this town. And we have a statue for Bagwell. We have a statue for Biggio. There will be a statue for Altuve without a doubt. And I'll say this, if he's not a first ballot Hall of Famer, shame on everybody who doesn't vote for him, because his entire career has said Hall of Fame, and he continues to grind, and he gets a lot of crap because of his defensive declining skills. He goes out and he grinds, and there's not a person that I want in the box more than Jose Altuve. If there's 2 outs, bottom of the 9th, and we got to have that hit or we got to have that home run, give me Jose Altuve every time. He just, I mean, and he's just a great humanitarian. My son had the privilege of taking the field with the Astros as an Astro buddy. He was selected when he was 9. At 9, my son was almost as tall as him. He's 6'3" now, a little bit taller than me, but he was out there, and I've got all these pictures of him just talking to my son. He was asking about baseball. He was like, hey, you want to race? And Altuve let my son beat him at the time in the race. And that's just what kind of person he is. So people can hate him, but you know what? He's the son of Houston. We love him. We've adopted him. He's got the keys of the city. The dude should not be paying for a single meal no matter where he goes.
Yeah, 100%. And I will tell you this. I mean, this was my pure honesty because I've loved Altuve more than anything, and I think he's a great kid. I felt like the bad rap that came about this was Correa. And I'll be honest, because it seemed like some of the responses was just like, look, if you just basically said it with your own honest words, we can move on from this. But because it's like, I watch the antics on the field and I'm just like, thank God the Astros proved themselves that we can do it without Correa, and they did.
Well, now I will tell you this with Carlos Correa, one of the key things that he did do, and that I think this city will forever be not indebted to him, but forever have respect for Correa, is he did stand up and he did call people out, and he basically put himself in front of the firing squad, if you would say, so that was when he left. For me, that was the biggest piece. I was like, how are we going to replace this? Yeah. I mean, how is, like, Jeremy Pena is going to be a superstar, I guess, but can he be Carlos Correa? And I'll tell you, the other day, I was like, Carlos who? No offense, Mr. Correa, but Jeremy Pena is making a strong bid to be considered one of the best shortstops in Astros history. So yeah, he was kind of that bulletproof shield for Altuve. Altuve, I think, did an admirable job. Yes. But look, at the end of the day, people are going to forever mark this team with whatever they want to mark it. These guys are fueled. So I would just advise fans, please, if you're in a stadium on the road, please incessantly boo the Astros. We beg you to boo the Astros. I promise you, we will not be mad at you if you do it.
Well, it might be kind of hard here in Colorado because we all know that, like, the Rockies, we're all going to be booing the Rockies, but it's like, we'll be booing one or the other. So it might be a little hard. We might have to specify it. But
well, here, if y'all are booing the Rockies, Altuve, here's the thing. If they boo the Rockies, Altuve will think it's for him. He'll just hit a home run. So
there you go. So we're doing him a favor at the end of the day. Anyway, final question before we move on is, we know that, the whole baseball world was shocked when Rafael Devers got traded from the Red Sox to the Giants. To me personally, I mean, I just had, Gabby Maljanian from Locked On Red Sox talk about this early. I didn't think they were going to have this immediately. I thought it was going to be next offseason. But because that happened, people are looking at the Red Sox thinking that they're all idiots. And I'm like, look, pump the brakes. To me, I don't want a type of cancer that I know is not going to honestly put the team first, that if I need to play first base, I need to play third, or I just need a DH, I will go and do it. But now it seems like it's a little slap in the face to the Red Sox. The fact that the comments he made with the Giants, that he's willing to play anywhere. I'm like, really, bruh? Is it just because you were not happy with the front office? I get it. Money talks. I get it that the front offices didn't hold like their end of the bargain. It just happens. But to me, it's like you got young kids. They're getting called up. The Red Sox will be fine. But focusing on the Astros on this, we know that the All-Star game is coming up around the corner. We know also trade deadline is always the fun part of the year. Has there been anything that like the Astros, they want to bolster up and they have their eyes set on, and that as long as it's up and on the right price, they want to come and play for H-Town?
You know, I know Dana Brown has talked about getting another left-handed bat and getting another pitcher. And I think yesterday, look, Colton Gordon wasn't horrible yesterday, but you know, he's a rookie. We've had Brandon Walter come up. He's done great, but it's his first real taste. Jason Alexander, not from Seinfeld, but Jason Alexander that we picked up from the A's, like he had 3 2/3 no-hit innings. I mean, he came in and he actually pitched a shutout while he was pitching. And so you have a lot of guys that are place markers. The question is how much do they trust Christian Javier coming back and Luis Garcia coming back, and depending on Lance McCullers and these other guys, and when Arrighetti comes back, how much do they trust that they have? If they feel like they've got a just this treasure trove full of pitchers that are just going to unleash on the league, then they probably stand pat with the pitching. But it's that left-handed bat that I think they lack. Then comes the question, do you get a guy who is a rental? If he's a rental, does he fit in this scheme? Like the first name I come to is Ryan O'Hearn, but Ryan O'Hearn is a first baseman and a DH and an outfielder. Well, that kind of sounds a little bit like Jose Altuve, kind of sounds a little bit like, Alvarez, and well, we got Christian Walker at first base. So that really doesn't fit in the Astros puzzle. If they do go pitching, Alcantara, I think, would be a great guy to call the Marlins on because he kind of appears to be broken there in Miami, and the Astros have a very good history in fixing pitchers, getting them right. I mean, Yusei Kikuchi had a career half of the season. Yep. And this year, although Hunter Brown and him are squaring off tonight, he's not having the great start that he is. Part of that's because he's in Anaheim, but he's still not as successful as he was. So Dana Brown has been cooking, has been calling, and I have heard that teams are inquiring about Chas McCormick. I think they see an upside with Chas. Chaz's opportunities have been limited. He did go on a little IL stint, but when he's been healthy, hitting like 270, 275, he's got the ability to hit opposite field home runs. He's got World Series experience. So he's a guy that might have some under the radar value. I just think Astros fans are concerned if they do make a trade for a significant bat or arm, they're concerned, like, does that mean Bryce Matthews is gone? Does that mean Miguel Uola, who's gone, from AAA? We were kind of thin in that market. So right now, we don't have a specific target. I just need a left-handed bat that's not going to cost the farm, that makes the team better. And I'll end with this. That's what you have to ask yourself as a club. Bringing this person on, do they make us a World Series contender? And that's what I think was the biggest crime of Yusei Kikuchi coming over here, is I honestly would have thrown him in game 2 after Hunter Brown, and then thrown Valdez if there was a game 3. But then again, like I said, we can, from a 10,000-foot view, we can manage the heck out of a Major League Baseball team, right?
Absolutely, man. And especially with the long track record that they have. That's why I tell a lot of people, it's not that easy to like literally end their reign of it, because they've been doing it for a long time. And then once it clicked, when they had their farm system, they built these guys up. They've had a consistent rate of winning, and at the same time showing up in a lot of these big stages, and they've been able to either get it done or they just come up short, but yet it was still a fun World Series up into the end. But appreciate you coming on by, Brett. It's such a pleasure having you on, tapping on in with all of our audiences here, where people can find you, getting locked in on H-Town Astros all season.
Yeah, man. Just look for me at H-Town Wheelhouse on like Instagram, on X, on TikTok. Also, July 10th, I'm launching Wheelhouse Media Company in Pearland, Texas. We've got some new shows. Back to the Bullpen will be part of the Wheelhouse Media Company. I do a show called Houston Sports Download. We've got we've got an up-and-coming LPGA player that we're going to be interviewing. We talk everything from like baseball to football to WNBA. We do it all. So just check us out. Please check out Locked On Astros. Subscribe and go check out Eric and myself. Again, Back to the Bullpen with Mike Stanton. And just look for Wheelhouse Media, man. You know what? I'm always positive, always Stros.
Look at you, man. All making all the moves, man, and all for the best, right? And hey, I got a couple people in the Waco area. So for them to be able to check this out, man, is going to be fantastic, and we'll absolutely love it. But Brett, appreciate you for coming on by, man. Good luck to the rest of the entirety of the season, and we'll see what happens with the Stros this year.
Thanks, Jake. And maybe we can have you on one of my mini shows. We'll definitely have to have you over to talk all things. I see you got all the league's logos, so it sounds like you're a pretty well-rounded guy. Thank you, and continued success to you, sir.
Absolutely. And, hey, I'll be taking that invitation for sure. Take care, man. All right. Well, there you go. I mean, to me, it's like, again, following the Astros for as long as we have, I mean, this has been a franchise that we knew from the very beginning. I mean, they've been needing an upbringing, and the minute that they do, like, hard to beat them. They just know exactly how to handle pitching. They know exactly how to handle the lineups, and they're not that easy to get rid of. I mean, just because, the Detroit Tigers did the job last year does not mean that they've completely fallen to the floor.
I think they have. I mean, I realistically think that they have, just because, like, you lost Dusty Baker, who's arguably one of the best managers in all of baseball, has coached several teams to a World Series or a playoff berth. The Reds, for example, like, he got them to their last playoff appearance and their last series playoff win that they've had. I mean, it even goes to the
Cubs. I mean, the time when he managed Chicago,
he took the Giants to the World Series back in 2002. Yep. And and I think that when Jose Altuve is gone with that team's going to start going down a little bit, just because they're losing that veteran leadership in the locker room and everything. And it's only a matter of time, because every team that has ever played in Major League Baseball has a 4 to 8-year stint where they are good and great enough to make it to a World Series and either lose or win one, and then be relevant for, another 5 years after that. And, when Dusty Baker ended his managerial campaign in 2023, and the Astros were just like, okay, now let's find a new manager. Yeah. You're still feeling the effects of that team and everything because of him. It's kind of like, what happened
think about it when the entire, allegation came around. I mean, look at how they felt with AJ Hinch. I thought the team would have literally took a hit after that. But then it turns out once Dusty Baker came in, and knowing Dusty, I mean, he's been through this for a very long time. So even if it's just like, I'll take it on. I'll take on the managerial job. And yet I was very happy of the fact that he got a ring, because how many times has he been in this predicament for years? I mean,
I was not happy to see the Astros win it again, but because they have been in the World Series 4 or 5 times out of the past, 8 years. Yep. But I was happy to see Dusty win it. But the way that I can describe this Houston Astros team is the way I can describe Ohio State after Urban Meyer left. Because it's the same thing. Because it's just like, why is Ryan Day winning so good? Or why did he beat Michigan for those first 2 times? It's because he had Meyer's boys. Why are the Astros still, having the success that they are? Oh, it's because they're Dusty's boys.
Well, here's the thing, though. They built up their farm system. I can at least attest to that, because I watched this team when they'd had Bo Porter. They had it's blanking me. Oh, Mills, when they had Brad Mills as their manager. Okay, this is how long it's gone. All right, I watched them when they had Brian Bogasevic. Think about that name when that came around. And so watching this build from their future, because you got to think about it. I mean, when we talk about the lottery drafts, right? I mean, the Astros were able to land Jose Altuve. They were able to land Carlos Correa. They were able to land George Springer, and that became the heart and soul of their organization, was because of those guys. But, I mean, you got to think about it. From moving on for Bo Porter, then going into A.J. Hinch, who initially kind of got them rallied up from 2015 and then eventually unlocked the potential to where they were in the World Series almost multiple times. Like, A.J. Hinch, that's why I'm happy of the Tigers' future, because A.J. Hinch has done this before. And I've said
the Tigers also have one of the best farm systems.
Well, they do, but it was a matter of time. You needed to get a consistent mind in there, because the Tigers, they weren't going to do this. Like, right after Jimmy Leland left, I mean, this was not going to be the same franchise. They were going to go through a lot of hit after hit after hit when they had Brad Ausmus. But once A.J. Hinch came in, I told people, I said, give this puppy 5 years. Because the thing about this is I've seen Hinch try to turn that Houston team around by the time they got into postseason in 2015 and do what they did to eventually unlock the potential of this roster. Look at Spencer Torkelson. He is he's a changed player right now. And same with Javi Baez. How many times have we harped upon that could be a terrible contract that he signed? Now he's turning it around. And I think a lot of that is because even just because you bring a farm system up where you got Kerry Carpenter, you got Riley Green, ultimately it all comes down from front office and manager. As long as you actually have the chemistry up and in there, that's what's going to turn around all the guys that you got on the roster.
No, I agree with you 100%. But like, when it comes to baseball, having the managerial experience like what A.J. Hinch had, because he was a bench coach for so long, and then he got his shot as a manager and everything. He saw how it was done. He was able to do it. And, you know, you build these farm systems up and you get the guys in there. But when it's all said and done, like, you've seen some great farm systems come up and get, you know, completely obliterated because the manager doesn't know what they're doing or does not know how to manage. Like, you can have the best farm system. Like, look at all of the players that the Marlins had that they have traded away to different teams.
Well, I think they could
have easily been one of the better farm systems in the league.
Well, I think a lot of that was just dysfunction in the front office.
Yeah,
that was really what
the dysfunction in the front office, and not and not a solid managerial leader that was in that clubhouse.
I mean, I'll be honest.
I'm saying give it another 2 to 3 years, and we will start seeing the downfall of the Astros. I think, you know, once you get off that high of what Dusty Baker was able to do, and Jose Altuve retires, you're going to start seeing a small decline for the Houston Astros, because like I said, it's like Urban Meyer leaving for Ohio State and Ryan Day taking over.
Well, here's the problem.
And then now he had to spend all of this money to get a national championship again.
Well, here's the problem with this. I've watched the AL West for as long as I have in the last few years. And here's my thing is the Astros are getting a break for this for a few reasons. Is number one, the Angels, since Mike Trout's rookie debut, has only gotten them into the postseason once. Even when you had, Albert Pujols, and even when you had Shohei Ohtani, you were not doing a favor for any of these star players. Nothing. And they've had, I can only imagine if Mike Scioscia still stuck around with the Angels and managed them, maybe they would have turned some things around. But it was all about the front office and the ownership of Artie Moreno. That's why I was like, Artie, just sell the team. Because
Ron Washington was a great pickup for them as the manager.
And now the problem is now you've got Ron Washington out indefinitely because of medical reasons. So I just am like, when is this going to end for the Angels? Because since Artie Moreno's tenure as an owner, they've been to the postseason a few times, but they haven't really, translated that to a World Series title. Not even when you had arguably the face of baseball for a numerous amount of years, and now it's Shohei Ohtani. And then here's the other thing. The Seattle
Instead
Mariners.
of getting rid of Mike Trout And keeping Shohei Ohtani, you get rid of Ohtani and keep Mike Trout.
But would that would have made the difference? Could have.
Yeah, it absolutely would have.
Well, but here's the other thing. Seattle, since 2001, what have they really been? They've struggled with pitching. They harp about, you spent a 10-year contract on Robinson Cano, and where's that gotten you? And then at the same time, you harp about Julio Rodriguez, which I'll be honest, he's a very good player, but I can't buy into the hype if none of this is translating for the Seattle Mariners to be a top team. And look,
their pitching hasn't been good since Felix Hernandez left.
What's funny about this division? The Astros, the Rangers, and the Athletics are the three teams in this division who has done a lot more. And even if you want to laugh about the dysfunction of the A's, a lot more than the Angels. I'm going to be honest with you. They've done a lot more than what the Angels have been doing in the last 20 years. That's what's shocking. You want to laugh at the A's, but it's like, how many times has Bob Melvin and all the rest of them gotten them into the postseason? They've been in the postseason several times, and they've also had spurts of winning years. I could go on the rest of it, but the Angels and the Mariners, give me a break. I mean, I watched the Rangers win a title. I watched the Astros win 2 titles, and I've watched the A's, who stand with 9 titles, but they've been in the postseason multiple times. No matter how many times they play this, Moneyball effect, which everybody is now on, they've done more. That's just the truth. So,
yeah, I mean,
that's the thing. Is like I think Astros fans can understand that even if this time does come, like, they're not going to necessarily feel a certain type of way because they know. That's the difference. I mean, it's unlike Seattle, and where it's just like, dude, we have not done jack squat. What have we really done? You haven't gotten a World Series title in this city. And I mean, now you got hockey there, and that who knows if we got the revival of the Seattle Supersonics. I hope we do. But it's like, what Pacific Northwest. I mean, the only thing that stands alone in Seattle are the Seahawks. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, Houston having one World Series title is pretty freaking nice.
It is, but think about it. I mean, you got the Rockets, the Texans, and it's like. But people have even asked about it. Would Houston ever have a hockey team? Yeah, I mean, hey, I'm down for that. The Battle of the Lone Stars series, you got it with the Rangers and Astros. Why not get a team down there to go and battle the stars?
Have the Rockets won an NBA title?
Twice, yeah, because that was Akeem. That was Akeem at the time.
And, okay.
Yeah. So I mean, but remember though, that was at a time when MJ stepped away. But so that's where, so the Rockets to be able to get, 2 NBA Finals titles. I mean, that's the thing. The Texans are smelling theirs. And with their future with CJ Stroud, it's going to be coming. So that's why
they have a very small window. They've got another 2 years left. Let's see. He was drafted in 23. So yeah, he's got actually another 3. So this year and 2 more under that rookie contract
negotiations. Yeah.
Before you have to pay him to try to make it to the World Series. To that Super Bowl title and try to win it. And honestly, if the Houston Texans win a Super Bowl before the Dallas Cowboys does, the Houston Texans are officially the new Texas team for football.
I mean, still 5 titles up in Dallas, but we know that the 30-year drought is horrible.
But they have it like if a Texas team has not been relevant since the 90s and has not done much, and you have an expansion team coming in 2002 who has done more
you gotta think,
than what you have, that's pretty freaking sad.
But this is the funny thing, right? As we look at Dallas, and just a quick note, we've seen the Mavericks get into the finals with what they did. Then we've also seen the Dallas Stars. I mean, I know they've been coming up close. And look, I feel bad for Pete DeBoer, but if he did not pull off that stunt with Jake Ottinger, it would have been different. But they've gotten to, a Stanley Cup final with Rick Bowness. And so the hardest part of it is that, they had a hard time scoring. And especially when you have a hyper scoring team like Tampa, and they got there. And then, and then you look at the Dallas Cowboys, and it's just like, we're in a 30-year drought. We ain't even sniffed the NFC Championship.
And it's crazy.
What are we to do?
You just said that the Washington Commanders had the same drought that the Cowboys had, and they just broke theirs last year.
Well, you got to think.
But that's what I'm saying, though. Like, if you have
this is uplifting because you are getting out of the hell of Dan Snyder, and now you got a new owner, a new GM, a new coach, and a new quarterback. So things are looking bright in DC.
And like, nothing to take away from Dallas and everything, but like I said, if the Houston Texans make it all the way to the Super Bowl in the next 3 years, and Dallas doesn't even sniff an NFC championship, you have to look at yourself and as a franchise and be like, what are we doing wrong? Because like I said, you had an expansion team that never even existed and came in 2002. They were the newest NFL franchise in the NFL. And they come in and, not even 26 years later, like 24 years later, and they win a Super Bowl, and Dallas hasn't won one since 95? Like, that's sad. Like, Dallas needs to take a real hard look at themselves and be like, okay, the Mavericks have had success, the Stars had success. Why can't we have the success that everybody else is having? Is it the ownership, or is it really who is under center?
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, man, is I still believe that historically, you still have, 5 titles. I mean, we know that for the historical thing. That's why I'm like, think about it with Philly, because Philly, they've only got 2. And we've had this conversation off the air. But it's like you're feeling like you're on cloud 9 right now, but we know with historical matters. I mean, but you got to think that the Steelers and the Patriots are right there with 6. And the thing about it is we all remember the history about the Pittsburgh Steelers, because it'd been the Steelers, the Niners, and the Cowboys. Only those 3 that we know we're fighting with each other. I think San Francisco, I don't know if this is completely a burnout for them, but I mean, Montana.
Don't the Giants have 5 too, or do they only have 4?
The Giants actually have 4.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's the thing is that, you look at a lot of these teams and it's just like, great, you're winning. But we know for historical purposes, like, they will still be a top. But again, it's not to replace what's happening right now, because they need to they obviously need a change. And that's why I'm like, with the Steelers, I'm critical of them, because it's like Mike Tomlin, all you are is settling for 500, and you're still going to be in middle of the pack purgatory with the NFL draft every single year. Like, that's your standard. That's pretty sad.
One thing I would like to see is Mike Tomlin get let go from the Steelers and get a change of scenery. And I would love to go see him in Dallas and see what he can do.
Yeah, we might get the possibility up from there. But I will say, though, a quick note, and I know it's obviously not something that we would be talking on the show, but Jonathan Taves is coming back. So he signed a 1-year contract with the Winnipeg Jets. And I feel like this is a contract just like Claude Giroux when he signed the contract with Ottawa. And he's from there. So to go back home into Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. So to me, the Jets have a very good team. And I think a lot of this is you need to have the right leader in the room. Now, you do have Adam Lowry being the captain, and you got Mark Scheifele, and you've also got Kyle Connor. But the other thing is, you just watch Connor Hellebuck. I think he's a fantastic goaltender, getting a Vezina and an MVP. But the thing is, it's time to clean up some of this mess. I mean, you learned this past year what you didn't want to do last year, and that is you don't want to be the top team to where all of a sudden your top goaltender gives up 24 goals in the series. That's unacceptable. And even when you're a Vezina Trophy winner. But at least with Jonathan Taves, the good news of it is you have a 3-time Stanley Cup champion. He's a former captain, and he's also somebody that gives you offensive help, spreading the puck around and getting it to the areas that you missed last year. Now, they do have a couple of youngsters that I'm actually very excited for. it's going to take a matter of time for Winnipeg, because I look at this roster and what they did in the Central and what they're going to continue to do in the next couple of years. This is a very special roster. So I just look at this as like Claude Giroux going to Ottawa, going back home, and really helping guys like Brady Tkachuk and a couple of rest of them to really secure that future. They're still in that building mode, but at least here it's a set roster. You got Adam Lowry as the captain, so you won't even have to worry about that. But you could still shed some light on experience, leadership, and more to really help this team get to the top and maybe eventually get to the Western Conference Final. I mean, that's what you want. Right now you got Edmonton, which even with they lost, they're still fire in their bellies. So they're going to be using this as motivation coming into next year, but that's not going to be easy with the cap situation. So good for Taves. I mean, when we talked about this with Jack Bushman yesterday, is that you're going to reminisce the years, obviously, with Joel Quenneville going into Anaheim. You still got Patrick Kane in Detroit, and now you got Jonathan Taves going to Winnipeg. You wish all nothing but the best. But I think the Jets could look very interesting. They may be a top team in the Central, but a lot of that's got to come down by the time you get into the Stanley Cup final. So, yeah, the Stanley Cup playoffs, it's a different breed. They're totally different breed. Good show, though, today. This weekend is going to be crazy. I don't even know what I'm going to get, but it didn't look like Tyrese Halliburton looked that hurt. It did not look like that. He looked poised, controlled, and everybody looked the same. I think now it's just, does OKC, is their momentum kind of shot? That's the other thing you have to understand. I'm going to put this out there. I think we're going to get a great Game 7. And I think
so too.
I think this might be one of those games that might go into overtime. I see it going into overtime. SGA and Tyrese Halliburton are going to fight tooth and nail to the very end. And I think it's going to be great for the bettors. I think it's also going to be great for the league and the players for these teams. But one of these teams is going to walk out a winner for the first time.
Yep. And it's going to be OKC.
You want OKC? I'll be honest with you. I see this being a 2-point victory at overtime. I think Indiana's got what it takes. I think they got what it takes. Indiana it's just so hard, Chase, because it's like they know how to score in several spurts. They could score fast, they could score consistently, and then they could also just like no lead is safe. Like you have to kind of play it on neck and neck, because even if you have a 10, 15-point lead, Indiana's like, hold my beer. I mean, Rick Carlisle's been on this. But I will tell you, it's got to be a special moment for Rick Carlisle if this happens, because winning a title in Dallas in 2011 and to win a title in Indiana. By the way, people were already like, will this be etched as arguably one of the greatest teams? I don't think so. And the only reason of it is because, I mean, we watched the Lakers, we watched the Bulls, and we watched many different teams to that extent. I mean, even when we watched the Heat. But my thing is that, to me, the vibe is it's going to be a title. It's going to be a title. I kind of treat this like Toronto. When they won their title back in 2019, I will treat it the same way. Toronto never won a title. They finally did for the entire country of Canada, because now Canada has baseball titles and they've got basketball titles. They have yet to at least break the curse with, the drought. But we know that they're so big on hockey because the hockey father is Montreal.
And notice how they have no football titles.
No. And, I mean, and I think they'd be okay with that. Because they're just like, we got our Canadian Football League. What do we need the NFL for? I think they'll be okay with it. But, I think that was a great moment, because when they finally got an NBA title, it's like baseball with the Blue Jays twice, Montreal with 24, Calgary got one with Lanny McDonald. The Jets have actually not won a title. And Edmonton, I mean, we remember the time when they were fighting tooth and nail with the Islanders for 4 straight years. And Wayne Gretzky and Paul Coffey and Mark Messier, and even for Grant Furr, all it took was just all those guys to come together, and they finally won it. It was the hardest time. But as far as everybody else, I mean, Toronto, you want to go all the way back to like the 50s, 60s? I mean, yeah, that team, man. But either way, I will feel happy with Indiana because Colts have won twice. I mean, you could account that for Baltimore when Johnny Unitas was there, and then the one that Peyton Manning won in 2006.
Do you really count that as the Colts though?
It's hard.
Like,
well, because
it was still Baltimore Colts and everything. Like,
yeah, but here's the difference, though. At least the Ravens, they were able to win it with Baltimore. They were able to do that twice, but for the Colts, I mean, you kind of want to associate it with the history of it. It's kind of hard, but still,
you can associate it with the history of the Colts, yeah, because they were still the Baltimore Colts.
Well,
but
yeah,
for the city of Indiana, they've really realistically only had one.
Well, yeah, I mean, but that's the thing. I mean, the only thing that you really have looking forward to you is down in South Bend with Notre Dame. I'm being honest.
And the Indiana Fever.
Yeah, well, that's the good thing. Now that you have Caitlin Clark and you got arguably the best. By the way, she's badass. I mean, did you watch that game where she literally had everything thrown at her, and it was just like, nah, I'm just gonna sink a bunch of these threes like it's nobody's business. And
it's crazy. And they have Notre Dame to look forward to, but like you also got like the Hoosiers and everything. But like,
you do for basketball reasons. But I know a lot of people they're hyping so much for their football team, but it's like, dude, you're a basketball program. This is the first time you've ever felt this in years. Okay.
Yeah.
I love Kurt Cignetti, but I'll tell you what, though, Nick Saban made a point. I may have taught Kurt Cignetti a lot of those things up in Alabama, but I did not teach him the trash talk part.
I expected Curtis Rourke to get drafted. He never did.
Yeah. Well, even a friend of mine was very high on Curtis Rourke. I think he's a good kid, but it's tough. But man, good show that we had here all this week. And by the way, we got new show dates. Thursdays and Fridays, folks. It's going to be interesting. But we are hoping to, at the very least, have those ready for more and more interviews because, man, these last 2 weeks have been cooking for us with interviews. We have been on fire with it, and we're nonstop. And so you guys can check out all episodes, all interviews as well. In case you guys have missed, check it all out here at the snakesportstalkshow.com, the website. That's right. Website is now available and open to the public. So you guys can be able to send your shout outs, check out all of our blogs and all of our About Us. You can also check out our merchandise list. Click upon the link, shop now. Everything's all available because these hats right here are so fire. I love it, but that I end up getting. I know Chase got to get geared up at some point, so but we got everything up all over there, and we know things are heating up. So tank tops, all of that, we got it all here for you on our Snake Sports Talk Show merchandise. For Chase and myself, guys, enjoy the Friday and the rest of the week, and enjoy the weekend as Game 7 is coming upon us here for OKC in Indiana. Who will stand atop the mountain here in 2025 in the NBA Finals? Appreciate all of you guys for being here with us. Have a great rest of your day and your weekend, and we will see you guys and hopefully see you guys next week for who will be claiming the victor in the NBA Finals. Take care, everyone.